person who clicked this video, by the nature of you clicking on this video, I'm sure you read the title. So you're never going to guess what we're going to do next. Yeah. So, never done one of these for Animal Collective. Big fan of their music, I'd say. Listen to quite a bit of it. I do a little bit of animal collecting from time to time. But I'm just going to rank these as I see fit. We're going off the script here. No script. Minimal editing, I'd say, is a good affair for this. So hopefully you don't get bored. Maybe I'll put some Subway Surfers gameplay on the bottom or something. Anyway, as a big giant disclaimer to this video, believe it or not, these are my opinions. So please proceed to get incredibly angry with me and leave it in the comment section below. I want it to be a bloodbath down there. Okay. So first we start off with, by the way, I'm going to do this in the order that they appear. I'm not changing it. I'm not going to go with easy picks first. We're going in the order that they appear. First on this list is Campfire Songs. And what a mid album to start with. I've listened to Campfire Songs probably twice. It's not a bad record. It's just forgettable. It's very slow. I mean, I like the aesthetics of it. It's kind of recorded in the background, supposedly trying to emulate being on like a porch, just jamming out with friends. And it's not like it's a bad experience. It's a good album. It's just boring when you compare it to the rest of their discography. So I think this is gonna be a quick first one. We're just gonna throw this in. Man, I don't know if I should do C or B. We'll put it in top of C for right now. It's not one of my favorites. I know people like this record, and it probably gets a little overhated, but it is just a little bit boring. Alright, now speaking of overhated, we have Centipede Hurts. Centipede Hurts was the follow-up to Merriweather Post Pavilion, which is their most, I'd say, successful record. It's kind of what put them onto the map in more of a general audience type of way. Like that usually Merriweather Post Pavilion is how people are familiar with Animal Collective, even in these days. So Centipede Hurts had big shoes to fill because MPP was such a popular record. And it's not the same record, and it's very different. It's not incredibly different. I'm not going to say it's a great record. I'd say it's a solid album. Yeah. And personally, I think it gets overhated just because it's not the same as MPP. And I'll be the first to admit, it's definitely not as inventive as some of their earlier work. But I still think it stacks up. It's not quite as good as MPP, but it's not awful. Yeah, a lot of hate for this record that I don't fully understand. So I think we're gonna just chuck that in B for now. A B, maybe top of B, but we'll see how the list falls. Okay, next is Dance Manatee. This is a bit of an infamous record. When I first started getting into Animal Collective, I thought I was familiar with MPP, and then how most people get into Animal Collective, but I said I'm going to do things a little bit differently. And I started from the start of their discography to the end. So it started with Spirit, They've Gone, Spirit, They Vanished. Then Dance Manatee was next. The whole crew isn't here in this one. This one was the first. It has Geologist in it. It's his first, I believe it's his first appearance on a studio album. Panda Bear and Aviator are obviously there. But man, this is one of the harder listens. It's just so many abrasive sounds that are not common, especially once they start to progress. You'll see Animal Collective has a very abrasive sound, but nowhere near this unpolished. It has similar issues that I have with Campfire Songs, where these songs are very, very slow and ambient, and some things, not a lot happens, and then there's a giant explosion of things that happen. So I like the experimentation aspect of it, but in terms of listening aspect of it, it's not a very good record. It's a bad record, I'd say. It's got to be one of their. I mean, it has to be their worst output terms. I mean, some of their newer stuff, like Painting With, well, I won't spoil it, but Dance Manatee, I feel like is probably going to end up the worst record on this list, and easily fits in D tier. The next record to rate is Feels from 2005. So we've kind of jumped around their discography a little bit. Dance Manatee was in, I want to say 2002 or 1. Campfire Songs was 2003, and then Centipede Hurts was 2012. So we've jumped around a little bit. This one, Feels, would be, I think, what you would consider their prime. So, this is a great record, right? It's a beloved record. People highly enjoy this record. I am not so high on Feels, and I don't know why. I'd love to explain why, but I don't know why. It never grabbed me like other ones have. It's not a bad record by any stretch of the imagination. It's got plenty of listenable songs, and I mean, Banshee Beat is a classic, and it's a pleasant record all the way through. It just never grabbed me. The melodies never grabbed me as much as some other Animal Collective albums that I just think are greater for some reason. I don't know why. It's just one of those things you gotta feel out, am I right? But seriously, yeah, I think this Feels is gonna fall in below Centipede Hurts for me. Above Campfire Songs, I mean, it's still, don't get me wrong, still a good record. Not my favorite though. Next is Here Comes the Indian, or as they've renamed it as of 2020, I want to say. Arc is what they renamed it to. And I own this record on vinyl. The only two I own a lot of Animal Collective albums on vinyl. I own Here Comes the Indian or Arc, and I own Centipede Hurts. I don't own Feels, Campfire Songs, or Dance Manatee. Campfire Songs is another experimental angle, and still part of, I'd say, like their formative years before they went on like that streak in the mid 2000s. I believe this album also came out in 2003. It's pretty good and has pretty interesting ideas on it. It's just kind of abrasive, and a lot of screeching and like ambient vocals. It is true freak folk, and I think it captures what it was going for very, very well. I just don't think it was executed. Let me rephrase. It captures what it's trying to do very well, but I just don't think I enjoy that aesthetic, and I just don't think it's a good one, at least in the way that it was done. So I think Here Comes the Indian or Arc, it's in between Centipede Hurts and Feels. Actually, no, definitely below Feels. I definitely enjoy Feels a little bit more than Here Comes the Indian. And then here is the album that I've been referencing for the entirety. One of the most beloved Animal Collective records, I'd say, and one of the most like conscious ones in terms of its knowledge known by your average music listener. So there are quite a couple songs on here like My Girls and Summertime Clothes, which were popular. And I mean, it's easy to see why. They're great songs. And this album is a very complete album all the way through. You can listen through this, and there's not many tracks where you'll be like, oh, I was bored on this one, or this wasn't done very well. The only tracks I think I have an issue with, or I didn't like as much as some of like the heights, like Summertime Clothes and Daily Routine, are Brother Sport and Lion in a Coma can get kind of tedious. But other than that, I mean, it's a very complete record, and it kind of was the first record to fully compact that sound into like a pop presentation that was digestible for general audiences. And you see that a little bit on Strawberry Jam, but Strawberry Jam has a little bit more of abrasive sides to it. MPP kind of wrapped it all into a nice little present, and it was done very, very well. That being said, I think this is an easy A-tier album in their discography. I think, as you'll find out, I don't believe it's their greatest record, but it was very good. Now we have the 2016 release, Painting With. Painting With is kind of painful for me, because some of the melodies are immaculate, but a lot of the songwriting gets so formulaic, and it's kind of everything that you don't want Animal Collective to be. So you have, the untamed sounds of the early 2000s, and then it kind of culminates in wrapping into a bow with MPP. You have Centipede Hurts, which does kind of its own thing. It's kind of an extension of MPP, but it's different. And then you get into this era of Painting With, which is the follow-up to Centipede Hurts, and it gets so dull. I mean, I can't lie and say Floridata is not a great song, but it's really the standout amongst a lot of very, very boring tracks. So, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put this one in the D tier. Definitely above Dance Manatee, though. That one is its own thing. Okay, so as you're watching this, I know you're thinking, you said you were an Animal Collective fan. That S tier slot is looking a little empty. And I'd say you're right, but not anymore. Because we finally gotten to this part of the list that was laid out. Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They Vanished. Hold on. Okay, I think I'm just gonna refer to this one as STG because it's easier than saying the entire title every time, but this is a magnificent record. So, as previously established, we said that, as they got more, the beginning was very abrasive and experimental, and then finally it culminated and wrapped it into a nice pop presentation. This is their first record. It just has Avi Terror and Panda Bear on it. Panda Bear on the drums, Avi on the vocals and instrumentation. And it is a ride. Personally, what I believe to be the best Animal Collective song ever to be put to an album is Alvin Rowe, and I think you'll hear that from many, many, Animal Collective fans, that Alvin Rowe is the best that AC has to offer. And I would agree. I would agree with that sentiment, but it's not just Alvin Rowe. The other common part of that sentiment that I always see is this album alone is enough to consider one of the greatest Animal Collective albums with just Alvin Rowe. But when you get into a record like this, there is actually so much more to enjoy about it. Now, I talked negatively about the abrasiveness on Dance Manatee, but I very much enjoy abrasiveness in records. I'm a big indie rock fan, fuzzed out guitars and all that, and I enjoy that stuff. So when it's done right, it's done right. The problem with Dance Manatee though is it was done poorly. On STG, it's done magnificently. And there's way more to this record than just Alvin Rowe. Alvin Rowe is the peak of it, and it's the closing track, and it's wonderful. But you have songs like Chocolate Girl, which is fucking excellent. Then you have April and the Phantom, another great track. It starts off rocky, and has a very loud screeching electronics, but for the point of the record, I think it captures it and represents what it's trying to do very, very well, which is tell a story about childhood. So I think there's plenty of I see the usage of these ridiculous screeching instrumentation to achieve what they were trying to achieve. Penny Dreadful's another great one. La Rapette, great track. It's hard to go wrong on this, and it's a very complete listen. It's a very unique sound, something that I don't feel that they captured anywhere else, and I think it puts it in its own category. It's such an alien release to, I think, most of their discography. A lot of another common thing to not like this album for is audio spikes. Obviously we kind of talked about that, and then a lot of the mixing is kind of poor. AV kind of falls into the background a lot, and a lot of things fall into the background a lot and are hard to interpret. But honestly, the way it melds together, I can't get enough of the aesthetic, and I don't know why. It just sounds great, and it was done very, very well. I think that's enough talking about STG. We gotta finish this list at some point. So next we have another great record, Strawberry Jam. If it wants to go back, okay. Strawberry Jam. In preparation for this video, I listened to exactly one album. I've of course listened to all the other ones before, but re-listened to Strawberry Jam yesterday, and every time I go back in, it's just another great experience every time. The centerpiece, I think, on this record is, which I think is hard to deny, is Fireworks. Fireworks is the culmination of the first 4 tracks, and then it slowly goes into this depressive but upbeat and longing song that is about 7 minutes long, but it is bliss listening to the entirety of it. All the tracks leading up to it are pleasant. Everything after, great. It's hard to go wrong with Strawberry Jam, and I think it falls right into what I would consider the prime of Animal Collective. STG is a bit of an outlier because it was before all of their experimental stuff, and STG is experimental in its own right. But once you get to this era with Strawberry Jam, which I believe came out in 2007, yeah, it was Feels then Strawberry Jam. It's hard to go wrong. Another great track on Strawberry Jam, Unsolved Mysteries. has these great grooves and like staccato guitar riffs. It's so with that being said, Strawberry Jam, easily an S tier record in the Animal Collective discography. Okay. Next is another great record, and the record that actually introduced me to Animal Collective. See, back in the day, I was a fan of, I don't know if this is embarrassing to say, but this is how I found Animal Collective, but I was a fan of an ARG web series called Everyman Hybrid, and Who Could Win a Rabbit was used in one of the videos, and was actually integral to the story during like some of the midpoints. But that song is great, is phenomenal, and I enjoy that song a whole lot. I get a lot of nostalgia from it. And Sung Tongs is no different. Sung Tongs is a solid listen all the way through. It's before they started truly experimenting with electronical forms of indie pop and like folk. That stuff would happen a little bit later on. I'd say a little bit later on than feels like Strawberry Jam is when it really started to get a little different, when they had tracks like One and stuff like that. But this is like your just straightforward quintessential Animal Collective record. My only issue with it is towards the back half of it tends to get just a little bit tedious, a little bit. Still good tracks on the back half of it, but the way it starts is so good. And then another one of my favorite Animal Collective tracks is on this record, Who Could Win a Rabbit, obviously. And then for some reason I just love the vibe and like longing sensation of Visiting Friends. It's quite a long track and is very formulaic, but the atmosphere that is created with that track is immaculate. Hard to reproduce. So I think Sung Tongs, great record. Going to go into the A tier for sure. I think I definitely enjoyed it a little bit more than MPP. But not as much as I would say it's in the S tier. And then finally, I know we've missed an album, Tangerine Reef. It's not on here, and I don't know where it is, but that's okay because I believe I listened to that record one time, so I think I'm cool with skipping that. It's not a good record anyway, it'd probably fall in the D tier. Finally, we bring this to Time Skiffs. Time Skiffs came out last year as of the recording of this video, and I listened to it and wasn't entirely impressed. Is it better than some of the more recent stuff that they've put out? Yes, I'd say so for sure. It's definitely a step above Tangerine Reef and harkens back to more of those mid-2000s Strawberry Jam era kind of stuff. It's definitely its own thing. Prester John was the lead single, I believe, and it's a good track, Prester John. Car Keys, another good song on it. It just didn't speak to me though in the ways that, you know, the top 4 albums did. It's definitely not a bad record. It's just one that I don't have fond memories of yet. I could say maybe that chalks up to my general disliking of it. But yeah, this record was a good return to form in terms of moving away from some of the formulaic stuff on Painting With and Tangerine Reef, but did not speak to me in the way that it would even come close to the heights of Strawberry Jam or STG or Sung Tongs or anything like that. So I think this one is going to fit right in the top of C tier. And yeah, that looks good to me. Oh, I don't think there's anything wrong there. We're not going to rate any of the, this was only studio albums, so not including any of the film scores they did. I know they did one for Crestone a couple years ago, and EPs and stuff like that, live albums. There are way too many of those. Let me know what you think of this list, if I got it wrong, or if I got it very, very right. Prove me right in the comments. Or don't, just argue and battle it out. I will be down there defending my honor if I have to. So thank you for watching this unscripted and pretty much uncut ranking of Animal Collective studio albums. Goodbye.